Mic check, 1 2 1 2.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
Hi, this is Bob Bender. You're listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music. Today we have, I'm going to say it's something a little out of the norm, but in a very cool way. We have Emily Satterlee, who's the founder of ItyDity.com, based out of the Music District in Fort Collins, which I want to talk about that just in itself. As both an entrepreneur and a singer-songwriter, Emily has bootstrapped her way to create the only artist-run online marketplace that matches music artists and producers with compatible styles to create affordable, unbiased, market-ready tracks. Emily's goal with Ity Dity is to empower the everyday musician to reach their highest potential. Previous to Ity Dity, Emily spent 10 years organizing the Orange County Songwriters in 2012. She was hand-selected by Music 180's founder, Eric Galen, for their artist development program. Emily, welcome to the show.
Hi, Bob. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Let's talk a little bit about where did this creation come from with Ity Dity? I mean, obviously, you're a singer-songwriter. Was there something that propelled you into launching this? Where did this idea come from?
I'm a singer-songwriter, and my dad got me a guitar when I was 17. I started writing my own songs, playing them out live, and eventually started working with producers to record and produce my songs. Mm-hmm. I was really young and really trying to figure out that whole landscape by myself.
When you say you were young, how young were you?
I mean, I was, 20. So young in the way of trying to navigate what was happening at the time was that recording and production was going to the home. This was like 12 years ago. And that was kind of new, and so kind of trying to navigate the interpersonal dynamics of that, and how is this supposed to work? What is a music producer, and am I supposed to have contracts involved in this? Are we, what am I supposed to pay? And all of that was, up to me to kind of figure out on my own. So that's how it started. I think that realizing how gray the area was and how tough that was for me to do on my own is what gave me a passion to start learning more about it. I went to college for a couple of years for both music business and music production.
Where'd you wind up going to college?
It's Orange Coast College. It's just a community college in Southern California. And then I realized too, learning a lot about the business and also production and coming to the sessions more prepared and more able to speak the language of producers was night and day of how the music actually turned out in the end. And kind of working on the development of myself as an artist was really important, but a step that I kind of skipped over in the beginning, and that I think a lot of artists skip over in the beginning. So yeah, for 10 years of trying to figure all of that out on my own, I became really passionate about trying to make that process easier for other artists to navigate.
That's definitely a big step, because a lot of artists that get into this business, they don't know what a producer does. And unfortunately, I got to say, there are some people out there who call themselves producers who don't know what that role entails. But it does take a lot of time, a lot of resources, and there has to be the right fit. And I think you talk about that on your website, talking about the right producer, because you can't take a producer who may be good in one or two genres of music and expect them to be fluent in speaking the language of what your music is, right?
Yeah, I think that there's I think what makes an artist and a producer a good match can also be an intangible factor. So you're right, just because they're rooted in similar genres to you, or it might seem like they'd be a good match for you, there's a lot of other factors that go into it. But I think it really comes down to an intangible factor. So it might be because they have similar personality types, or they have similar influences or musical tastes and styles. It can really just be hard to know all of that right away up front. That takes time. So that's why Ity Dity allows artists and producers to kind of work together ahead of time to feel out if that spark is there or not.
And that's so important, because you're going into the studio, and I've always said this, you're creating a baby. You're really, this is coming from you. It's coming from your heart and your soul and your blood and your sweat and tears. And you really need someone that can help deliver this into the world for everybody to truly not only just hear what you've created, what you've composed, but also to appreciate it and understand it.
Yeah, definitely. An artist's song is their baby, and it is very important to them. So they want to give it over to somebody who's going to at least, care about it as much as they do, or at least kind of understand the vision that they have for the song, the overall vision. But a lot of that also, is the artist's responsibility too, to understand what the role of a producer is in the first place, and coming prepared with maybe a clear vision for their song from the get-go.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and that is, and we talked about this with previous podcast episode when we had Precious Harris on, and she talks about be prepared, do your homework, study. And it's so important, because once again, when you go into that studio to record what it is you're going to do, and you get it out there into the world, into the public arena, you can't go back and fix it. I mean, you could do a revised edition, but once it's out there, it's out there. So you need to know what it is that you're doing and how you're doing it and who you're doing it with, which is what it comes down to, the producer. And the producer wears so many hats. In the studio, when I have produced, you become kind of, in some instances, you're not only the producer, but maybe you become a co-songwriter, or maybe you're a babysitter, or you're a marriage counselor, or there's a lot of things involved just other than telling an engineer which buttons to push. The producer has to be creative too, because you have to understand this artist. Let's say Emily Satterlee. You got to understand you. Got to figure out where you're coming from, what you're trying to say with your music, and then as you hear it and you envision it, you have to think about different sounds. You're going to want to add strings, or you're going to want to add, a banjo or whatever it is. And you have to either one of two things: A, know that that's what the artist wants, or B, be able to convince them of it. And if you don't win them over, then you continue to walk on and move on with the project. But yeah, so finding that right producer for your music is real important. So with that being said, how does the artist do that through your company?
Yeah, I do want to say that you did hit on an important point, that I think one of the biggest frustrations producers have nowadays is that they're not seen as artists themselves, which they certainly are, and so they're not always given that creative leeway that they should be given in a lot of the cases to lend artistically to the project. I think our platform kind of sends that message to the artists in an undertone by saying, listen, all producers aren't alike, and they vary differently in their styles, abilities, and approach, and their creativity. So how do we help artists find the right producer for them? First,
because they have that vision.
Right. So first, it's about crafting that vision. We help walk them through the steps of that by selecting from specific genres, influences, sounds, effects, and even instruments. They can get even pretty detailed if they want to. And then they're posting that as a project on Ity Dity, and they're saying, this is kind of my vision for the song. Here's my demo. These are some influences and musical references of mine. And then producers can come onto the platform, and if they resonate with that song and that artist, they can request to work with the artist on their song.
Is there a certain criteria to where you try and, is there a way to hone that down a little bit, or is it just, if you're a producer and I think I want to work in this genre, then does it become a bit of a sales job or a marketing job on the producer's part?
Yes. So then after that, there's a process. So after the producers have come on and have told the artist that they want to work on the song, the artist can look through those producers and hear what they have to say, hear why the producer says that they feel drawn to the song and what they would bring to the table. And they can pick their favorites from that pool of producers to move into what is the fourth stage of the process, where the producers are actually downloading the tracks from the artist's song, uploading those tracks into their DAW, their digital audio workstation, and then crafting together real-life rough draft versions of what they would proposed to do with the song. So now the artist can actually hear how their song would likely sound with each producer and make an informed decision of which producer to pick to move into that last, fifth, and final stage where that selected producer and the artist are working together to complete the song to perfection.
A little bit of detail involved in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if I made it sound more complicated than it is, but it's pretty simple. But the whole point is that the artist is going to make their selection based on the creativity of those submissions, and not based on what who the producer says they have or haven't worked with in the past or anything like that. It's important to mention too, that final stage of the process is blind. So the artist really is picking their favorite submission just based on the quality and the creativity of the submission alone, and it doesn't matter the past portfolio of the producer or maybe other discriminating factors like age or location or gender.
That is so cool that you have that in there. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're going to talk some more with Emily Satterlee, who's the founder of ItyDity.com. Which is her company's offering to me what I think is something that has been badly needed for a long time, and we're going to talk about that a little more when we come back. This is Bob Bender, and you're listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music.
Hello, this is Tim Matthews.
And I'm Robert Dunn.
And we are the Hoedown on the Harpeth.
That's right, it's Nashville's best, newest music festival.
And you are listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hi, this is Vinny Ribas, the founder of Indie Connect. Our goal is to ensure that you have the knowledge, the tools, skills, resources, and connections that you need to develop a profitable and long-lasting career in music. One way we do this is through these Business Side of Music podcasts. I'd also like to invite you to check out Indie Connect magazine, our free multimedia online publication packed with practical interviews and advice from music industry experts. Go to www.indieconnectmag.com. That's www.indieconnectmag.com. Let us walk with you and guide you every step of your musical journey.
Hi, this is Christian Dyke. I'm an award-winning music producer, and I also help songwriters get their music licensed to TV and film. I recently got a songwriter $30,000 for a placement in the season finale of a TV show. If you got just 3 of those a year, you'd be making almost 6 figures. Getting your music into TV and film is not about luck. Discover some of the best ways to license your music successfully by watching the free videos on my website at makemoneyfromyourmusic.com.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
You're listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music. In the studio with us today, Emily Satterlee, the founder of ItyDity.com. I think I find interesting about this, because we have become such what word do I want to use? We're such a mobile world now, with smartphones, tablets, iPads, etc. We don't have to sit in one location. Then the other thing that I find out that happens is we're now recording music. I don't want to say no longer, but it's almost there, it seems like sometimes. We're recording music in a very transportable manner, whether it's Pro Tools or it's GarageBand or Band in a Box, whatever it is. You now, in many cases, can record music anywhere you want, whether it's in a recording studio that's going to cost you $1,000 a day, or it's in your living room or in your garage or, in your kitchen or bathroom. But you still have to create quality, well-produced, and that's the key word right there, well-produced product when you're doing this, because once again, it's a reflection of you. You would not go out on a first date with a torn t-shirt and dirty jeans to try and impress somebody. You want to look your best. So when you do your music, you want to sound your best. It's the same thing. With that being said, a lot of artists cannot afford to go to LA or New York or Chicago or Austin or Boston, wherever it is, to get into some of the best studios in the business. This actually helps bring that type of element, that atmosphere to them, right?
Right. So, remote collaboration is becoming more and more standard. It's not, well, at least it's not uncommon anymore to do that. And if you're willing, there's obviously disadvantages. You're not in the same room as the producer, and so you're not as able and easily able to bounce ideas back and forth between one another. But if you're open to it, it's definitely going to open up a lot more doors for you. You can work with top producers, or producers can work with top talent from all around the world. And what that could mean in your music, I mean, that could really help elevate your sound as well. I do think that one of the problems right now is the notion that because everyone is able to record and produce songs on their own with this, the hardware and software is now so easily affordable and accessible. I think that's actually kind of a dangerous notion to say just because you can do it, you should. You definitely want to be able to be self-aware enough to know where your limitations are and to know when you want to go out and hire an engineer in your area, at least to record the tracks for you. But I think working remotely with producers, after you get those solid tracks recorded, we definitely have the resources available now to do that.
And you brought up something that reminded me, a few days ago, a thought came to my head, and I posted it on my Facebook page where I said, I'm an analog guy in a digital world. Yeah, I'm very old school. I still believe in recording from the ground up, putting all the pieces together. And it's once again, it's creating that subtle nuance that I think artists and producers, those relationships are so important. And you're right, it's a remote collaboration, but you still have to be able to visually, not just in an audible sense, but you have to visually be able to reach out to each other, even if it's through different platforms, communicate, because that's what's so important, is the communication skills. Is the producer and the artist, the singer-songwriter, are they able to, through Skype or whatever, lock eyes on each other and be able to communicate?
So one of the, I think one of the biggest values that we offer through Ity Dity to both artists and producers is the communication system that we have that's built in. So as much as possible, we're creating an atmosphere that feels like you are in that same room, and so that you can bounce ideas back and forth easily. We suggest that you use Skype. That's not integrated in our platform yet, but we hope that it will be soon. But definitely having that face-to-face is huge. But also just having what we already have in our in the communication tools that we have are time response time prompts and reminders. We offer different questions that the artist might want to ask at a certain point during the collaboration to the producer, and we kind of give a guideline of what would be the appropriate time frame that you should respond to that, and so that the project doesn't drag on too long, and also just so that both sides are heard, that both the producer's ideas are heard and both the artist's ideas are heard. You know how much this is going to cost, you know what the budget's going to be, you know the time frame for the project, you know how long do we have to make this song, and you know how the parameters of how are we both going to be expected to lend creatively to the vision.
And so that's another question that comes up. These are reputable producers, so you know that when you go in and you negotiate the deal, agree on the price, that it's not going to change, that you know what you're going to get for services, you know, what goods you're going to get for services rendered. I'm assuming this has not been an issue?
The price points of after a producer is selected for the project, no, that hasn't been an issue. That's, it's very clear up front, like this is what's going to be paid after the work is signed off on and finished. And then copyrights too. The artist knows that they're going to be retaining all the copyrights unless they chose to offer sound recording royalty splits from the get-go. So that's all laid out clear up front, and there's no confusion.
Once again, you got to get back to that the artist not only has the vision and the right producer, but we then get into the performance aspect of it. You provide tips and tools and ideas and suggestions for what that artist should anticipate and expect in the performance?
I think it says very clear on there too, like even the best producer can't fix a poor performance. And right. Especially your vocal take is going to be a huge piece of that. But also when working remotely, I know producers are frustrated because a lot of times the artists aren't even recording their tracks to a BPM because no one's really telling them to do that. So yeah, we have videos on the site, some instructional videos of best practices for recording your instrumentation, how to do that, and then how to upload those tracks to the site. If you don't feel confident as an artist to capture a high quality vocal take. I know that, that's still a frustration for so many artists of trying to get that right atmosphere in their bedroom or whatever to get rid of the background noise, and it still can be a struggle. If you don't feel confident in your abilities to do that, then we connect you with an engineer locally, or at least we have a network on our site of engineers all around the world. So you can find one close to you, and then some of them are verified on the site. We've done background checks, so you want to look for that verification badge for the ones that come highly recommended from us. But so that's kind of like an Airbnb for home studio engineers almost, and artists are encouraged to use that as a resource to make sure that they're getting those quality takes.
I think, first of all, that's a great analogy. It's an Airbnb for those remote engineers. I think an artist should not feel encumbered because they don't have a quality room to record in or a great microphone. This affords them that opportunity to go to that local engineer, and maybe it's around the corner, or maybe it's 30 miles down the road or 50 miles down the road, but it's still a lot cheaper than buying a plane ticket and flying to, Nashville or LA or New York. So they can walk into that studio and capture the best audio quality that they can.
Yeah, the pressure, like I said earlier, too, the pressure that's on musicians nowadays because they can record by themselves, because you can produce on your own. And I just think that does a disservice to the art. You might be spending way too much time trying to advance your home setup and trying to figure out how to become an engineer when you're just a really good songwriter. So just go to a professional to help you engineer those tracks if that's, if it's taking too much of your time away from your art.
Makes perfect sense to me. We're going to take another little break, and then when we come back, we're going to wrap up with a few more questions with Emily Satterlee, who is the founder of iditty.com, based out of Fort Collins, Colorado, who is, from what I'm seeing and hearing here, is an amazing opportunity for singer-songwriters to be able to get their music out there into some really professional, experienced hands when it comes to getting that music recorded. We're going to talk some more about that when we come back. This is Bob Bender, and you're listening to this edition of The Business Side of Music.
This is Jim Jesse, songwriter, attorney, and author of The Musician's Guide to Music Copyright Law, and you are listening to the Business Side of Music podcast.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Wow, I just joined the Music Starts Here community. This is a truly hidden gem for anyone in the music business. Whether you live in Nashville or anywhere else in the world, Music Starts Here is like a GPS for your music career. This is the place to be if you want to get advice and direction from some seriously talented musical people who have been where you want to go. Music news, events, and a great big community with resources for artists, songwriters, musicians, studio and tech, along with music business advice from pros in the industry, all on one site. Make sure you get your free profile now. Go to www.musicstartshere.org. That's musicstartshere.org.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
This is Bob Bender. Welcome back to another edition of The Business Side of Music. In the studio with us today is Emily Satterlee, the founder of ItyDitty.com, based out of Fort Collins, Colorado. We're talking about remote collaboration. And I loved the one thing you said where it was kind of the Airbnb for engineers. I guess to a certain extent, it would also be an Airbnb for producers that are qualified to be within your system. So we talked about the vision and the right producer and the performance. How does this all flow? You obviously have templates on your website. People can go in, but there's a certain protocol they still have to follow, right?
So it's a 5-step process. Any artist that wants to have a song produced can come to the site and do that. There's no qualification that you have to meet. You just upload your demo, describe how you'd like your song to sound when fully produced, list some musical references of yours, some influences, and then use our built-in system to choose from specific sounds and effects and instruments that you might want on your song. If you want to, you can also leave it up to producers and not choose any of that. Depends on how specific you want to get and how clear you have of a vision for your song. But after you outline your vision for your song, you post the song as a project on Ity Dity. Producers from all over can submit a request to work on the song. The artist can then go through those requests, choose some of their favorites. The favorites move into the fourth stage of the process, where the producers are actually downloading the tracks for the artist's song, uploading those tracks into their DAW, and then crafting real-life rough draft versions of how they would each propose to produce the song. The artist then goes through those submissions in a blind process and picks their favorite, and then works with that producer to complete the song to perfection. The price that the artist wants to list as their payout amount is up to them. It starts at $5.99, but they're always encouraged and incentivized to offer more money to the project if they want to. And we kind of give them some guidelines of when that might be appropriate for active artists. If they're actively gigging or if they have an active social media built up, they might be able to offer less money, but instead offer royalty splits, things like that. But the payout amount is all set up front, and then at the end, when the project is finished, the selected producer walks away with that cash amount, and the artist retains all the copyrights for their song.
While we're on the subject of setting up a payment, what is the cost for the singer-songwriter to get involved with Ity Dity?
So no cost to get involved with us. If you do post a project and you select whatever price or price amount that you select, we'll take $30 as a service fee. So right now it's really low. We're just kind of getting this up and going. That will just come out of the whatever payout amount the artist chooses. It's nothing above and beyond. There's no surprise hidden fees or anything like that.
So you're basically the clearinghouse.
Yes.
So let me ask you, when you go to your website and you have the little buttons on the menu buttons, I should say, you browse producers. How many producers can a singer-songwriter expect to look at?
It depends on they're welcome to go through our catalog at any time and see a producer that they feel drawn to and invite them to work just one-on-one. If they see a producer on the site that they really like, they're welcome to do that. But as far as how many producers they can expect to enter into work on their particular song or their particular project when it's posted, it's usually around 10 right now, but it's going to depend on, how much money you're offering. The more money you're offering, obviously that's most likely going to attract a wider range of producers and potentially even a higher caliber of a producer to your song. But it also just might depend on your song itself. If it's a really hit song, then you're probably going to expect to get more producers interested in your project. Only after that you move into the phase, the fourth step of the process, where you're actually asking producers, a handful of producers, 5 producers, to actually download your tracks and submit rough draft versions. That's when your project becomes guaranteed, where at that point you need to select a final producer to work with you. But before that, in that third step, when you're just kind of putting it up there to see if producers would be interested, there's no pressure. If you don't get any producers, if you get a small amount of producers or just no one that you'd be interested in working with, no pressure. You can have your money back and you don't have to move forward.
I would assume in 9 cases out of 10, you're going to find someone that you think is going to hit your sweet spot, help you really create this, right?
We've never had it not work for anyone. Yeah, so it's always, we have 100% success rate. And not only that, but once a producer is selected for a project, they now have a qualified relationship with that artist. That artist has now seen that producer is more well-suited for them than many other qualified candidates. So they're more likely to hire them again for additional follow-on work. And we've seen that time and time again as well, where the producer has been hired through the site to work on the one song, but the artist and the producer are now working on an entire album together.
There's nothing wrong with it. You don't have a problem with that whatsoever.
That means that it's working.
And that's what that's all about. Is your whole thing is really to empower the everyday musician, not only to reach their highest potential, as you have said, but ultimately to get them with the right people so they can either A, launch their career, or B, take it to the next level when it comes to recorded music.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely why this was created. Was to make the production process clearer and easier for artists to navigate and to help them to avoid the common pitfalls that could otherwise discourage them, like it did me early on. But I think beyond that too, this is really exciting about what's possible in music creation now, about pushing those boundaries. I think we live in a really amazing and opportunistic time where small home studios now can operate like big businesses, and DIY artists can now use their resources to become big acts. I think if you're seeking out knowledgeable and experienced professionals to help elevate your music, and you can really achieve your goals now. You just have to work really hard to do that, but it's possible. And I guess the coolest thing about what we're doing is that not only are you going to be connected to some compatible producers and compatible collaborators, but you also have the opportunity to meet some unlikely producers and collaborators who might have roots in opposite genres. And I think what that might be able to do for ingenuity in music is really, really exciting.
And that's, once again, you continue to hit the nail on the head, and that is, we're very much into a DIY world now. If you're an artist and you attended the CD Baby DIY conference that was in Nashville a month or so ago, you find out that a lot of this responsibility is now on you. The record labels, although they're still out there, they're still seeking new talent, but so many A&R managers are now looking for something that's complete. They're looking for something that is a little more than what is. They're not looking for something that's so much in the conceptual stage, as they're looking for something that they can almost take and run. So it behooves you as an artist to get your songs, get them in front of a good producer, get something recorded and get it out there. And this seems to kind of be the one-stop shop for that.
Yeah, it's definitely the expectation now. If you are, it depends on your goal as an artist. If you just want to create something to show off to your friends and family, there's plenty of high-quality, affordable, and accessible home recording hardware and software that's going to help you do that. But if you want something to shop to labels, to license to TV and film, or something just more serious to sell at your shows, then you're likely going to want to enlist the help of engineers and professional producers to help you achieve that.
So, Emily, how do our listeners find you?
We are at itydity.com, so that's ITYDITY.com. Twitter at Ity Dity Music, Instagram and Facebook at Ity Dity.
And they can reach out to you if they have any questions. Your staff will get back to them. Your team will get back to them as quick as possible.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of putting my email out there. I'm Emily at itydity.com if you want to reach me directly.
Emily, thanks so much for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. I'm happy to have been here.
As a listener, you know that the Business Side of Music podcast is free. But in order to keep it running, consider becoming a patron of our show. You can do this by going to our Patreon page on our website, which is www.businesssideofmusic.com, and click on Support the Podcast button. When you become a patron of our podcast, you'll have access to material that you won't be hearing on our regular shows, insight from industry leaders that is designed for our patron members, and have the ability to purchase the Business Side of Music merchandise that you can find on our website at a discount.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. Co-producer for the show is Vinny Ribas. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Los Angeles, California and Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.